We all know the feeling. You look at the news, see another broken promise, and think, these politicians are completely out of touch. They're corrupt, they're self-serving, and they absolutely refuse to listen to us. But what if the political class is actually listening to us perfectly? This is the premise of Janus democracy. It suggests that the general will of the public is often a psychological paradox, a collection of deeply conflicting desires that makes governing impossible. Our collective rage is the direct mathematical result of us getting exactly what we ask for. Let's look at a typical voter named Jim. Jim is furious about national debt and demands that the government immediately balance the federal budget. But ask Jim for specifics, and he refuses cuts to Medicare, defense, or pensions. He also violently opposes tax increases. Jim isn't intentionally difficult. He genuinely holds these mutually exclusive preferences simultaneously. He expects the math to balance without changing the numbers. When politicians are handed this impossible math by their constituents, they are trapped. Any policy they enact to balance the budget will violate one of Jim's core demands. Either choice triggers instant, predictable outrage. Researchers call this phenomenon transconsistency. It occurs when a person holds a buy attitude, leading to a Dialetheial paradox, a situation where a statement and its direct contradiction are believed to be true simultaneously. Simply put, we have a deep biological desire to have our cake and eat it too, and we manage to do this without experiencing any cognitive dissonance. The problem arises during an election. Voting forces a binary choice on a transconsistent brain. We have to pick heads or tails, even though we deeply desire both outcomes at the same time. Because we secretly want both opposites, whichever side that political coin lands on will cause a psychological backlash. The moment we get heads, we realize we miss tails, making us immediately regret our vote. Why does the human brain accept these glaring paradoxes? Economists point to a concept called rational ignorance. The logic is sound. Because one single vote is statistically meaningless, the chance of swaying a major election is roughly 1 in 60 million, our brains calculate that learning complex budget mathematics is a waste of time and energy. To fill the information void, our brains rely on emotional shortcuts. We massively overestimate the cost of highly visible programs like foreign aid or welfare, and severely underestimate popular universal entitlements. When we look at the actual numbers, the reality is inverted. The true cost of entitlements, like pensions, completely dwarfs welfare. Our brain's natural instinct to ignore complex data traps us in a false reality. We convince ourselves that painless political solutions are possible, when mathematically, they are fictional. New Zealand provides a clear example of how these psychological paradoxes dictate national policy. Right now, there is intense political rhetoric in New Zealand demanding strict fiscal discipline. The government has heavily targeted job seeker welfare, framing these beneficiaries as a primary source of economic strain. Yet that rhetoric directly contradicts the country's structural reality. New Zealand's superannuation, the universal, non-means-tested pension given to retirees regardless of their wealth, is the single largest driver of welfare spending and long-term fiscal pressure. Because the public holds a transconsistent demand for both fiscal austerity and an untouched sacred pension system, politicians are forced into a corner. They launch punitive attacks on the poorest citizens to satisfy a mathematical illusion, knowing that touching the actual major expense is political suicide. This creates the Jamesian pragmatist politician, leaders who do not lead but instead act as a mirror, reflecting the public's contradictory demands right back at them. They weaponize the voter's cognitive blind spot. By using aggressive rhetoric against minor welfare costs, figures like David Seymour project an image of fiscal responsibility while ignoring the massive, politically dangerous pension system. This provides cover for glaring hypocrisy. While politicians tell the public the state is broke, members of parliament participate in their own lucrative superannuation scheme that matches their contributions by 250%. Constant electoral backlash and gridlock are the predictable outcomes of a society at war with its own desires. Our persistent political rage is the result of demanding the impossible. We give politicians a blank check to lie to us, when we refuse to align our demands with mathematical reality. Fixing a stalled democracy requires voters to look inward rather than waiting for a savior. Real political change can only happen when voters finally choose to confront and reconcile the paradoxes inside their own minds.